Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Before I begin, I just want to thank all of the wonderful speakers who came before me. Dr. Yael Nave, school board member Shanak Darup, former school board member and council member Gail Price, my colleague on the HRC, Commissioner Patty Regier, Christine Pham, and my wonderful campaign team. It is because of your passion and your dedication to making Palo Alto a more welcoming, inclusive, and responsive community for all that I am here today. Thank you for all that you do for our community. I also want to thank a couple of VIPs for taking time out of their day to be here with us today. We have Vice Mayor Tom DuBois. We have Kathleen Foley Hughes, the founder of my favorite coffee place in Palo Alto, Ada's Cafe. Thank you for being here. We have Parks and Recreation Commissioner Ann Warner Cribbs, who is an amazing Olympian and athlete. We have school board member Jennifer DeBrienza. We have my other HRC colleague, Commissioner Valerie Stinger. My favorite raging granny, Ruth Robertson. Thank you for being here. We also have two of my colleagues who are running with me, running in this race this year for City Council. We have Planning Commission Chair Carrie Templeton and Rebecca Eisenberg. Thank you all for coming. And I want to especially thank the community for coming out. It's good to see everyone here virtually, even if we can't meet in person. For those of you who don't know much about my story, let me tell you a little bit about who I am and what drives me. So I'm Stephen Lee. I'm a current Palo Alto Human Relations Commissioner, and I'm a progressive Democrat running for Palo Alto City Council. I'm a third generation Chinese American and the second of 4 kids. My father grew up in Michigan and is a software engineer in the defense industry. He has always been a hard worker, a skill he inherited from his father, who immigrated to the US from China to study mechanical engineering at MIT. Through his hard work and dedication, my father was able to get a job as a software engineer just as the field was starting. While my mom was working on weekends, my father was always a hands-on parent. I vividly remember our weekend trips to McDonald's and biking around the park with my brothers and sisters. My dad would always find ways to sneak me out of nap time while my 2 younger siblings were stuck taking naps. These days, however, I can't get enough of them. My mother immigrated to the US from Indonesia to study pharmacy at the University of the Pacific. She is the eldest of 6 siblings, each of whom followed her here and immigrated to the US to attend college and start families. Like many families, our family dynamic can sometimes be contentious and full of disagreements. But like a community, we set aside our differences and find ways to love and support each other. My parents met in Stockton while my mom was at school, and they got married 6 weeks later at San Francisco City Hall. After my father took a job at Boeing, he and my mother moved to Seattle, where I was born, and where I spent the next 2 years of my life. Eventually, my father was transferred to a Navy base called China Lake. In an era before Google, the prospect of living near a lake was pretty exciting for my mom. It was only later that she realized that it was a dry lake bed in the middle of the Mojave Desert in California. At some point while we were living in the desert, my parents were able to bring my grandma on my mom's side over from Indonesia to come to live with us. I distinctly remember coming home from school each day and being forced to eat strange desserts with beans in them. It didn't matter whether I liked it or not, I had to stay there until my plate was clean. While this certainly frustrated me at the time, I'm certainly grateful to my grandma for expanding my palate and for helping me become the foodie I am today. In the early 2000s, my parents made a tough sacrifice, and they moved our family of 7 to the Bay Area. At that time, I didn't quite understand why. Why would they move our family to this new area where my parents would have to work twice as hard for a house half as big? My parents knew what so many Palo Alto parents know, that a quality public education can be the foundation for success later in life. My parents are some of the hardest workers I've ever met. Even as a pharmacist, my mom worked multiple jobs just to pay the mortgage and to save up enough to send me and my siblings to college. Our family was extremely frugal, and like so many families, we saved as much as we could and lived below our means. Their tireless work ethic modeled good work habits for me and my siblings to follow. Moving to the Bay Area and attending schools in the Cupertino School District changed the course of our lives for the better. My parents' hard work and sacrifice enabled each of us to pursue successful and fulfilling careers. My older brother, Alex, is a Navy SEAL down in San Diego. I attended UC Davis and Duke Law, and I'm now a practicing attorney. My younger sister, Diana, is an Ivy League educated orthopedic surgery resident in Boston. And my little brother, Jonathan, is a financial analyst in Redwood City. But that's only part of my story. Beyond the work public schools do to prepare students for their careers, they also help establish our values. I was privileged to have so many great teachers and professors who helped mold me into the person I am today. I remember being in Mr. Madsen's 8th grade US history class on 9/11. 2001 was a particularly poignant time to start my teenage years. That year, we learned about the values enshrined in our Constitution, things like equality, things like pluralism, and tolerance for all. We also saw how, throughout our history, we as a country have oftentimes failed to live up to those values in how we treat other people and other groups of people. In the wake of 9/11, I found it particularly disturbing how we were repeating some of those same historical mistakes in our treatment of our American Muslim community. Coming of age during this tumultuous time forever shaped my political views. It instilled in me a personal responsibility to advocate for others and showed me the importance of living our values, especially when things get tough. Now, there's a saying, be the change you wish to see in the world. As a teenager, my way of being that change was being involved in my local community. I joined neighborhood associations and local boards and commissions, doing whatever I could to make my little part of the world a better place from the inside out. When I was 15, my friends and I founded the San Jose Youth Advisory Council. Together, we advocated for and helped formulate a plan for what would eventually become West San Jose's first teen center. Later, in college and in law school, I continued to serve on local commissions and boards, always hoping to do my bit and to leave those communities better off than how I found them. In Davis, for example, as a Human and Social Services Commissioner, I worked with the City of Davis to protect our immigrant community and reaffirm our status as a sanctuary city. I worked with community members to address Davis's achievement gap and to establish a living wage ordinance. I also worked with the city to increase the number of affordable and accessible housing units. I worked with the UC Davis administration to ensure that the university was doing its part to build housing and to mitigate the impacts to the larger Davis community that resulted from the growing student population. Then, as I am now, I'm a big proponent of being a good neighbor. I organize multiple Davis Neighbors Night Out events to help unite and improve communication within neighborhoods, working to ensure our policies and our development plans reflected that philosophy as well. When I moved to North Carolina to attend Duke for law school, I again joined the Human Relations Commission, advocating for our minority populations. Now, I could go on all day about the various things I've worked on with my neighbors. Over the past 16 years, 9 commissions and 3 neighborhood associations. But my campaign team said to keep things short, and I know we're running a little bit long as it is. Each of these experiences over the past 16 years have left me a bit wiser and far more experienced than when I started. They each taught me a lot about leadership, about service, and about empathy for others. They also taught me a lot about working with others, and it taught me a lot about myself. The one thing that has remained constant, even all these years later, is my genuine optimism about our future and the need for passionate and engaged community members to move us forward. So how did I end up here in Palo Alto of all places? Well, after I graduated from Duke, I returned to the Bay Area to practice law. After years of moving around for college and law school, I wanted to put down roots in a community I could call home and where I would one day raise a family. For many of the same reasons that Palo Alto parents move here, I chose Palo Alto because of its excellent schools. While I don't have children quite yet, I am determined to give them the same opportunities my parents gave me, and I will work hard and sacrifice to make that happen. I also chose Palo Alto because of its small town feel. I love being able to walk around town and actually know the people I bump into. And I love how engaged everyone here is in the local community. even as we are all so busy with family and with our careers. There's truly a sense of community, a sense that we are all in this together. And you simply don't get that in larger cities like San Francisco or San Jose. My friends are always asking me to move to the city, but the city just isn't for me. When you're home, you know it. Palo Alto is my home. Palo Alto is my community. And while there are many things that attracted me to Palo Alto and many things that we are blessed to have, we know that our city, not unlike our country, is still not fully formed. We have so much more work ahead of us to preserve the aspects we love and to improve on the things that need improving. But I remain excited and optimistic that if we work hard together as one community, that we can build a community that future generations will be proud of. I strongly believe that our best days are still ahead of us. It is with that eternal optimism that has driven my work over the past 3 years as your Human Relations Commissioner. And it is that same spirit that will drive our work as a community over the next 4 years if given the opportunity to serve as your council member. As I have met, listened to, and worked alongside so many of you, I am constantly inspired and motivated by the passion, by your persistence, and by your hard work that Palo Altans put into their causes. It's been my true privilege to make your causes my causes, to be an ally, to be an advocate in City Hall, leveraging the resources of our city to further these community causes. We've worked on some amazing things together over the past 3 years, and that work will certainly continue. Together, we've accelerated plans to make our city facilities more accessible to all, specifically working with our special needs community to accelerate plans at Rinconada Pool so that no family is turned away simply because there's no family changing room. Together, we've worked to get our community service department to be more thoughtful and responsive to the needs of all families. Our efforts led to the development of a departmental task force that meets every 2 weeks to identify ways that our recreational programs and activities can be even more accessible to individuals of all families. And together, as allies of our LGBTQ+ community, we've denounced hate speech and created the North County LGBTQ+ Coalition to provide resources and services to fill previously unmet needs. This effort has already produced early results, including a $300,000 2-year pilot program between Avenida Senior Center and the County of Santa Clara to provide much needed LGBTQ+ services to seniors. And more recently, the HRC, working with the Youth Council, health professionals, and parents in our community, we brought attention to the teen vaping epidemic. Using our respective platforms, we've pressured our council to move a bit faster and to take more decisive action to address teen vaping. And I'm proud that our council finally approved a vaping ban earlier this week. Together, we've also worked to protect and serve our immigrant residents by getting the county to maintain its policy of not cooperating with ICE. We've also educated the public about the Chinese Exclusion Act and the importance that all immigrants play in our community. Together, we fought for and advocated for gender equality at City Hall. And together, we pushed for more funding to address homelessness and for a housing-first approach. Together, we've worked to increase city funding for teen mental health services. Teens are members of our community too, and mental health is a shared district and city responsibility. Together, we've also worked to improve police transparency, accountability, and have initiated meaningful reform even before it was popular to do so. We've done all of these great things and so many other things together. None of this would be possible without you, the community. As Margaret Mead once said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. All of these efforts, however, have faced some level of opposition or pushback or delay, in particular from those at City Hall. And while I will never question anyone's motives or the sincerity of their beliefs, mine have routinely come under attack. But that's okay, I have pretty thick skin. As long as I'm doing good and doing good for the people of this amazing community, I'm going to continue working and I'm going to continue fighting for everyone. My motivation has always been and will continue to be to amplify community voices and to pursue change that is consistent with our shared values, even when doing the right thing is tough or bad politics. Change and progress are never easy, and they rarely come without opposition. But I don't want us to ever be afraid to boldly and courageously fight for what is right. Now, there will always be people who are going to find a way to say no. They will equivocate, delay, find reasons for why something won't work here in Palo Alto. We do not need a council that is going to defer to staff or who are satisfied with half measures or delayed progress. Palo Altans, I think we've had enough of that. We have so many pressing issues facing our community. We don't have time for a councilor who's just going to stand there and say no. Instead, we need a councilor who's going to put in the work and have the tenacity to get us to yes. Perhaps now more than ever, we need a lawyer on the council. Most of my day consists of hearing why something can't be done. It is my job in turn to ask good and tough questions, to really get my hands dirty and to really understand what's happening beneath the surface. It is my job to work hand in hand with stakeholders and at times to know when and how to respectfully push back on assumptions and conclusions and to find a way to get to yes. These are certainly skills I've developed and used as a lawyer, and they are skills and a mindset we desperately need on our city council now more than ever. None of us are perfect people or perfect candidates, and certainly none of us will always have the right answers to every problem. But now more than ever, we need leaders who are willing to commit themselves to making the hard decisions, who will listen to the community, ask good and tough questions, and who will act and vote consistent with our values. I want us to be a community that doesn't shy away from strong views or strong convictions. We should be a community where we can have passionate, vigorous, and at times uncomfortable conversations. I envision a council that is a team in the truest sense of the word, a team where it is okay to have differences of opinion and where people feel comfortable discussing those disagreements honestly and openly without hurt feelings and without folks refusing to work with you afterwards. To me, decorum, civility, professionalism, and results are not antithetical to contentious debate. To me, the truest test of leadership and of teamwork is whether you're willing to continue working with those you disagree with. As leaders, it is our responsibility to show up and work together no matter what. Sometimes that means I'm going to compromise. Sometimes it means other people will compromise. And sometimes it means we'll agree to disagree. And that's okay. The issues we face as a community are too important for us to get bogged down in business as usual. The issues we face in this new decade and in my lifetime are large, and they are difficult. They are going to require us to take big and decisive action. We can no longer tiptoe or nibble around the edges, and we can't be content with past achievements or small incremental change. And that's why it's time for bold and progressive and responsive leadership. Bold leadership means taking risks. I know Palo Altans are problem solvers, and to meet our community's needs, we need a city government that matches that innovative spirit and courage. And just as we are leaders in tech, Palo Alto should lead the world in building a community that works for everyone. Progressive leadership means using government as an instrument of good. Palo Altans deserve a community that is a great place to raise a family, no matter who you are, where you work, or what your needs may be. Palo Alto deserves a community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. And responsive leadership means working with the community. Palo Altans need a council that will rise to meet each challenge, a council that is even more accountable, is quicker to take action, and involves and listens more to the community in the decision-making process. One issue that requires new and bold leadership is housing. Housing is so inextricably linked to many of the issues that this community cares about and which are currently adversely impacting current residents. If you care about reducing traffic, for instance, we need more housing. We need to ensure that those who work in Palo Alto are able to live close by too. And regardless of how many people end up working from home permanently after this pandemic, we'll still have a jobs to housing imbalance and the traffic that comes with it to deal with. Now, if you're serious about climate change, we need more housing. We need to reduce our carbon footprint, again, by enabling folks to live closer to where they work. My generation and the generation after mine simply can't afford to wait. Addressing climate change will require bold and at times uncomfortable changes. Now, if you care about maintaining our excellent schools, then we certainly need more housing. We need to ensure that young families are able to move to Palo Alto. Right now we are seeing declining enrollment, which isn't good for our schools or for our kids. We need to ensure that when students and teachers do return to campus, that our teachers are able to live in and close to the communities they teach. It simply is not sustainable environmentally, physically, or emotionally to be having teachers commute 1 to 4 hours a day. It takes a toll on our teachers and takes precious time away that could be spent with our kids. And if you care about our economy, we definitely need more housing. We need to make sure that we can affordably house all of the families that have moved here because of the office development that has been approved over the years. We need to keep the jobs that we've already created here. If we want to meet the needs of a growing senior population, we need more housing. We need to give seniors more housing options so they don't find themselves socially isolated in their homes. We need to build dedicated senior housing near services and amenities for seniors who want it, to ensure that seniors will be able to maintain their active lifestyle in this community where they raise their families. And if you care about public safety, we certainly need to address housing. While Palo Alto has hundreds of fantastic emergency service volunteers, in the event of an emergency, too many of our public safety employees simply live too far away. We need to change that. And if we are serious about ending homelessness or addressing racial and economic inequalities, we need more housing and more affordable housing for all. All of the things that make Palo Alto a great place to live and raise a family are slowly eroding away because of our inaction on housing. We have the opportunity this year to reverse that trend, but only if we elect a council that is serious about housing. This is a responsibility we have not only to the region, but it's a responsibility we have to ourselves and to current residents and to this community. We need to get to work and get serious about housing. For the past 3 years, it's been my pleasure being your Human Relations Commissioner. Together, we've worked to move our community forward on a number of different issues. And while we have accomplished a lot together, there is still so much work to be done. I hope to have the chance to continue and expand on this work at a higher level as your advocate, as your ally, and as your city council member. In a few weeks, we'll have an opportunity to change the trajectory of our country and of our city for the better. Decisions are made by those who show up. So please, remember to vote and to vote for change up and down the ballot and get your neighbors and friends to do the same. Let's work together, Palo Alto, to bring bold, progressive, and responsive leadership to our city council. Thank you very much.